Okay, you guys are starting. Hey, you guys are starting.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Determined Show where I bring on stroke survivors and they share their testimonies in hopes that you can relate and capture a piece of their testimony each and every week. And as you continue to capture pieces of their testimony, they stack together. So today I brought on Donna Dymally, who is going to share her incredible journey. So without further ado, here is Donna. Donna, why don't you share? Why don't you give our audience a little piece of who Donna is?
Well, Donna is, first of all, a mother. I'm an artist. I'm a photographer. I'm an activist. I'm an advocate. I'm an author. But most of all, I'm a stroke triumphant.
There you go.
That has been my biggest challenge, and I've weathered it well. Not
Yes.
without a lot of obstacles now.
Hey, hey, yes, yes. As a survivor, we all have, overcame huge obstacles and we continue as we continue our recovery. Those obstacles are in our path and it's up to us to overcome those obstacles or let them stand in our path and just become walls. It's up to us to be determined and continue to push forward and strive and capture our goals.
That's the only way. So,
Hey, there you go. There you go. Now, Donna, so we're going to go ahead and dive deep into your journey. All right, Donna. So you had an ischemic stroke, correct? And it was an
yes,
ischemic, right?
correct.
Okay. So I want to I want you to, can you recall that specific day of when you sustained that stroke?
It would be a day that would go down in infamy for me. My
Mhm,
birthday was February 22nd. I
mhm,
got on an airplane, which I did every week because I helped kids get into college and I traveled every week to another state. It was February 24th, 2 days after my birthday. And I got on that plane that morning, I felt a little hot and sweaty, but you have to go through all that rigmarole, taking off your clothes and getting patted down. So I was like, maybe I'm wondering why I'm so hot. But anyway, got in my seat and I didn't feel quite like myself, but I didn't feel horrible. As soon as the plane took off, I felt like there was a vacuum clean, like a suction cup, rather, just sucking something out of my left hand. It was the oddest feeling. I knew that it was not normal. I did not know what was happening to me. And I said to myself, should I call the airline stewardess? Because we're always instructed if something goes wrong, call the airline stewardess. And I'll never forget. This voice said to me, you're closer to God. You need to call on Him."
mhm.
Listened, and here I know something's going wrong with my body, and I said, "Wow, let me say my quick prayer. Take a second to do it." And I prayed that God, I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that He had me in His loving arms, and that He was going to guide and direct my way and move me through whatever was happening to me. And the interesting thing was that I never slept on a plane. I flew every week, but I could never sleep on a plane. I always got a book or watched a movie or talked. As soon as I said my prayer, I was put to sleep and I slept through the entire flight, 5 hour flight from here to Dallas.
Wow.
Um, I when I went to deplane, I knew I wasn't myself. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel any better, but I had just woke up. And so I went to get my luggage out of the overhead compartment. And I did this, of course, every week. I always had no problem. When I went to pull it down, I was not able to get a hold on it. I knew something had definitely gone wrong. And a gentleman helped me with it. And I had one of those pulls. So I was able to pull it. I felt like I was on fire. My body, it was the strangest feeling that enveloped your entire body. Felt like it was just reeking with pain that was just going through every vein, vessel, artery, everything felt weird. And I was able to make it to the, because I was taking another flight to go to Birmingham. That was my final destination.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there. One of my employees who was on the plane with me, he comes up to me and we get to talking. And I told him, you know what? I'm not quite feeling myself. I don't know if I had a stroke or something on the airplane. And and I said, but when we get to our final destination, I'm gonna go to the hospital. And no sooner do I say this. Now remember, I said the prayer for God to guide and direct me on the plane. A gentleman sitting behind me taps me on my shoulder and says, "You cannot get on that plane." And I'm like, "Well, who is this man? Who are you?" And
Yeah.
he said, "I don't mean to be in your business, but I'm a doctor." He said, "If you get on that plane, you could have another stroke and it could kill you." He said, "But if you make it to Montgomery, Alabama, I guarantee you will die in their hospital." Because he's a doctor and has a cell phone, he dials 911. He sends me to the top stroke center in Dallas. And from
Wow.
that point on, I knew that there was something bigger that was guiding me through this. And I took on another attitude about what was happening to me. Because I was, what were the chances that a doctor would be there and literally I'm probably save my life?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That he would care, that he would, you know what I'm saying? You know, some people that he wasn't on duty, you know, or that he would even hear it. And I knew that there was something bigger operating in my life. And I had never felt that to that extent until that time after that voice had listened and told me, call on God first. You're closer to him, you're in the air.
Yeah. So now, what do you think? I mean, obviously, you called on God, and there was some sort of factor there played a role in the doctor, um, you know, saying, "Hey, you know what? You need to go to a doctor if you get on the plane again. You're probably not going to make it to Montgomery, Alabama." Now, were you showing like a face droop or something like that, some sort of sign that
At,
you had a stroke?
at that time, I had had my arm, I mean my leg. I knew I wasn't walking regular. I didn't have my balance there. My body, I told you, felt like just burning pins and needles. It was excruciating. It was like I short circuited. And you just and my vision was weird. Everything was like discombobulated. It's very hard to explain because it's nothing normal.
Yeah.
So you feel like I'm here, and I mentally kept myself, kept pushing forward, telling me I'm gonna make it through this. I kept telling myself that it was a mental thing that saved me because my body was like just enveloped in pain, and it was weird. I felt like shock. Somebody just had a shock. Like you ever get your funny bone? It just felt like my whole body was like a funny bone. And especially this left hand. This left hand was actually totally curled up like this. I couldn't move it at all.
Mm,
The doctors told me they don't know if they ever move it. And I can do this again.
there you go.
I can do that again. Um, I went. I had a strange thing. I was in the hospital for 5 days. I was in darkness. They put me in a dark room. I don't know how you were, but it was in complete darkness, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me because I was still because we need to be still so we can listen. I was still and I couldn't move, so I was immobile and I just needed to be still. And I spent a lot of time in stillness and finding out why this was I was moving forward, how I was going to move forward because your life is totally transformed. It
Oh,
was
100%.
time.
Yeah.
You didn't have no time to prepare for nothing. I was on my way to work
Yep.
on the
Yep.
airplane. That's just how I flew. But my life changed. And here, I'm not even at home. I don't have a friend or a relative. I'm in Dallas, Texas, where I thought nobody, you know, what
Yep.
did you do then? I knew that I needed some outside force to help me make through this. And mentally, I was going to have to transform my mind. I just wanted to read you just something I wrote. I wrote a book called Awoke by a Stroke because I had to write down some of the things that happened to me.
Hold it up. Hold it up a little bit higher so we can see.
Yeah.
There you go.
And and it
Sure.
was a wake up time. I felt like the stroke was a wake up time for me. And it, like I said, I learned so much from it. But I wanted to share just kind of what I was at this point I was at after having this stroke and realizing your life has changed and
Let's,
you have no roadmap.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have anybody, you don't know. They release you from the hospital and you on your own.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This is something I wrote, and it says, I was on the threshold of one of the greatest adventures of my life, and I was at a crossroads. My choice of direction could forever change regarding how I perceive myself in the world. And I decided at this point that I could choose the direction of progression and transformation. I knew that if I didn't redirect my thoughts, I wasn't going to make it. I recognized that if I was going to be true to myself, I could evolve into an enlightened being who could provide wondrous service to the world and all who were a part of this world. I also had the choice to be merely one of a mass of units in embryo, drifting from one phase of existence to another, unintelligent indifference. And everybody has choices. The choice was mine. And the voice whispered to me, what is your choice? A powerful moment of truth reverberated throughout my being like rolling thunder. On some deeper level of consciousness, I realized this decision was something I had been unconsciously seeking for a long time. And I realized then that I had to totally change my consciousness to survive this, because this was nothing I had ever prepared for. You know, I didn't have, I mean, my whole lifetime, I couldn't go to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I had a daughter coming out of college who I was
Yep.
still helping her go to college, but my life changed. And this one thing this voice said to me during this period was, if you worry about material things, you will never make it.
There you go. I
And
connect with what you read so much. One of my mottos is choices determine your future, and the 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 drawing or the logo that goes with it is a road, and then it goes off into a V shape. So
mhm,
it's basically a Y.
mhm.
So you're traveling down the road, and then you come to a junction. Now you can either make choice A or choice B, right? So you make choice A. Now it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that one of the choices is a bad choice, right? Because either way, one, it's going to be a learning experience,
Yes.
right? But you have to make that choice. You can't be stuck at this Y junction down here, right? You got to make the conscious decision to make that choice to advance in your life. So even if you make this choice and it happens to be the wrong choice, it's still a learning experience, so that you will grow from it, right? So I resonated so well with what you read. I loved it 100%.
And you know
And
what, Mark? My it's funny because my whole journey changed because I had to go back, leave Texas, and go back home. And on the way back, coming back, I lost my eyesight. You know, at first I was scared to get on the plane because I'd already experienced a stroke on the plane, but I had to move past that. But
yeah,
on the way back, I lost my eyesight.
uh,
And when I get back to LA, the doctors give me no hope of anything. They want to give me more drugs or whatever, but nobody's helped thinks I can get my eyesight back and gives me no leads.
yeah,
That
you
was
know,
the
yep,
journey to get my sight back because I'm a photographer. What am I going to do now? And I'm blind. I have nobody to lead me around.
yeah,
I, and my father had gone blind through glaucoma. I had studied at the Braille Institute Braille, but I feel like I did that to help my father. I could read Braille. I had
mhm,
prepared myself for that, but I had not prepared to ever use it on me. And I
yeah,
never expected that I would ever use it. I never believed it when they told me that I would never see again. And it's funny how God led me to a healer, a natural healer who provided me with I call it the potion, witch's brew potion that
yeah.
that healed my body. It's been natural medicine that has healed me from cannabis. I use cannabis on my hand because
There you go.
this hand was, and it still hurts. Even to do this hurts me, but I learned to be to tolerate it. You know, there's certain things I'm limited on doing because this hand will hurt. It's still painful here.
Mhm.
You know, to get my disability, I look so, you know, I come in there dressed nice. You want to look good. And because I didn't look, just my face was scrunched. My face was, you know, different at first. When I first
Yeah.
had initially, it wasn't straightened. But I learned, I used to be a special ed teacher. So I
Hmm.
knew how to work with kids who had disabilities. I taught
Hmm.
kids with disabilities. So when I was in the hospital before they gave me rehab, I started doing my own personal rehab from what I had learned from teaching children who had physical disabilities. I started doing AEIOU because
There you go.
that's what they later taught me to do. And
Mm.
because I understood the sound when I taught that. So there were a lot of things that I just took from my personal knowledge. And after I got my sight back, I could go on the internet. The internet has been an instrumental tool for my healing because I learned to practice meditation. I did meditation for sound healing and to heal the vibration of this hand because it hurt me to pick up a napkin. It hurts me still now to pick up a napkin. I have broken a flash, a $500 flash on my camera because this hand. Sometimes I try to, because I do try to use it because if you don't, it'll atrophy. But sometimes I grab the thing the wrong way and I lose grasp on it. You know, it
Hmm.
stays cold all the time. I generally always wear gloves. Sometimes even in the house because it stays cold like that. So I still have challenges, they're just not as noticeable. And you know, and when I went to get my disability because I look normal, but my attorney asked me to hold my left hand up, and when I held my left hand up, a tear rolled down my face because I was in that much pain, and the judge granted me my disability. But other than that, I looked normal.
Yeah.
But I have what they call a complex regional pain syndrome, which affects your central nervous system. And what happens is because of the nerves got damaged, they don't allow blood flow to come or temperature to be gauged right. So you know it's cold. It's like my little grandson will say, "Why is your hand like ice?" Even in the
Oh,
summertime, I can cool your drink with my hand. So, you know, I used to tell people I've been wired for sound because I'm affected. I'm hypersensitive to sound and taste. Anything on my left side, I still am affected by it. You know, when I pray, I can, when I have a cell phone on this side, I can feel the waves coming through my cell phone. That's why I say be careful about holding phones close to your ear because I actually can experience it. When I meditate, I can feel this energy force coming through on my left side. I don't on my right side.
wow, that's crazy. That's intense.
But I'm very intense with touch. That's why just touching me, I used to scream. Oh, people would say, "What's the matter?" You know. But you
Hmm.
know what I did? I did when I wanted to go back to work, and I didn't tell people for a long time that I'd had a stroke. You know, I didn't because I knew that you know, especially being in Hollywood, that they would judge me. So I learned to just go on a need to know basis. So I didn't want, you know, let me tell you this, you're gonna laugh at this one. A few days after I had maybe a week or so after I come back from LA after having my stroke, I was scheduled to get my first paid job with Paramount. I had been working with Paramount Pictures, one of the producers there. In fact, I'm doing her Oscar party this in April. Well, first time they had put me on payroll because they make you work a while and prove yourself first. She
Hmm.
put me on payroll. Well, I come back to LA and my job's like a week or two later, and I'm blind. But I got this job, and I knew that if I didn't show up, they would never call me again. So I conned my daughter somehow because she told me I was crazy. You just came out the hospital, you're weak, you cannot shoot, and you're blind. So I said, just take me there. I asked God, I prayed, and I said, God, should I do this? And he told me, just show up. So my daughter takes me there. She gets me to the front door. She drops me off. And it was a glass. I never forget, it was big glass. And I could see shadows enough to get in. And the red carpet fortunately was right there. It was like almost like God sent to be there. I shot the show. But when I got the pictures from when my daughter looked at them, she said, "Oh," and the lady had paid me. She had paid me at right at the end of the show and just said, "Give me the pictures." I worked for her before, so she knew me.
Yeah.
And when I see the pictures, oh man, I mean, when my daughter looks at the pictures, she said, "Mom, you cannot show these. These are horrible." Do you know the producer who I work for called me up and said, "Donna, you know what? We don't need your pictures this time. We got enough pictures from all the other photographers, so don't worry about sending me your pictures." She has never ever done that before. I'm going to work for her next month.
There
If
you
she
go.
had known I was blind, she never would have let me work.
Yep. Hey, and that's another aspect, like you're saying, God's work right there. He was looking out for you right there. You're probably shooting up at the ceiling or something, taking pictures of the back of people's heads.
Not composed well at all, but I still work for her to this day.
Hey, that's great.
Showed up and I listen to that voice that speaks to all of us. I listen. I learned that from being on that plane to listen and to be quiet and to be still. I learned to listen to that. And if that's one of the greatest lessons of this stroke journey is to listen, to be still. And that's one of the reasons we're having these strokes. For one of the reasons, because we got all this pressure and tense, and we don't take time out for ourselves. And it's really important to do that, to be still and to go inside of ourselves. That's why I say I look more at the inner beauty than the outer beauty anymore. I my whole reference has changed. And I look at the good works of people, the good deeds, and the caring for one another. Because there was so many people who came to me. I mean, I was about to be homeless. It took me 3 years to get disability. That's another thing. The system. 3 years. I worked since I was 15 years old. I worked all my life. And here I'm sick and I went through all my money. I lived about a year off all my money, and I didn't have family here to help me. I had one daughter who I said was in college, and and then I was facing to go homeless, and I was like, "Oh God, please move me to this." And do you know I had met a guy at a meeting I had met a few weeks before photographing an event, a community event, and he had asked me he was a private investigator, had asked me to do some work for him. And I told him one night I couldn't go out and do it because I didn't know where I was going to live. Do you know he put me in this $1 million house and took care of me for 5 years?
Wow.
And, just we were great friends. He got me jobs working as a photographer for the private investigators, and they paid well.
Yeah.
It was something I was able to do even with one hand, and I wasn't under pressure, you know. And I mean, that's why I'm saying there were so many ways the universe showed up for me, and I just am so appreciative of all the people who have showed up in my life and how you just never know why things are coming to you. But the stroke was my teacher. The stroke was my teacher.
Yeah. Essentially, it you made that conscious decision, like you were, alluding to earlier, to either, quit or, buckle your bootstraps and, get the moving on, essentially your new path in life, even though you're still doing the same thing that you were doing before, but now it's, you have to alter it just a little bit different and do it a little bit differently now. You were saying that, your hand is colder, because of your stroke and it
And
affected your nervous system
yeah, and it shakes too.
and it shakes. So essentially what you have to do then is you kind of have to mostly do it one-handed then, right?
You know what I did? Let me tell you another thing I did. We always are taught that laughter is the best medicine. So
There you go.
I put it to the test. I decided I would go sit in comedy clubs. I would laugh and photograph, and I would laugh myself back to health. And I decided I made a goal of 1 year, and I would go 2 and 3 times a week. And I learned I got to meet all the photographers. I know all the comedians in LA. and I laughed, literally laughed myself, and I learned how to shoot with one hand because it took that, you had to really practice and practice and practice to do that. And the comedy, I didn't have to move because I was still weak. So I didn't want to be in my feet too much. Doing
Mm-hmm.
purpose, you're on your feet a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
be still and not be mobile so that I could
Yeah.
sit back. But I could practice that hand movement. And that's what I did for a year. At the end of that year, it's funny how the universe blessed me. I got to shoot do Ronaldo Reyes, who was a comedian's funeral. And then I got to meet Dick Gregory, and I got to photograph him at that whole year. So it was almost to me like the universe paid me back for sticking that course. And I said, I'm gonna give myself a year and see. And I ended up, they named the show about me, a comedy show. And they used to say, come every week, Donna Dymally would be there laughing and photographing. And that became my moniker, the
They
photographer, laugh and photograph. Yeah.
love it, love it. So,
So
just
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. So just going back just a little bit, to when you sustained your stroke. Now, what besides the what you kind of already stated, what other deficits did you sustain from your stroke besides? So when the doctor saw you on the at the airport, you said that your hand was curled up a little bit. Then you went to the hospital for 5 days. Now, when they released you from there, what deficits did you have from your stroke?
They really didn't. First of all, let me say this: they did not want to release me at all from the hospital. They did not want to release me at all from the hospital. Um, um, but my daughter was graduating from college, and I was like, "What do I do for her?" And I was concerned about her, and they kept saying I didn't have any insurance, but they treated me like a queen at that hospital in Dallas. And they said, look, if you go back to LA, you're not going to have any insurance because I was a freelancer. I was working independent. And they said, they're not going to give you any treatment. And I was like, well, I have to go back. I can only stay here so long. And exactly right. When I went back to LA, it was hard for me to even get any medical treatment at all. And they told me I needed to be on rehab. I needed to be utilizing, moving my hands and, equipment. And I had none of that. I had to come here and fight. It took me 3 to 4 months to fight to just get just some rehab. And so
Mm-hmm.
I realized what I had to do was I had to find my own rehab. So that's what I started searching. Thank God for internet because since I couldn't move a whole lot. I was in so much pain. I did have the use of my limbs, but it hurt to comb my hair.
Mm-hmm.
Anything on this side of my hand, it hurt. It was unreal. When I was in the hospital, I looked like somebody had literally stuck my finger in a electric shock. My hair was on end. It's funny because when I left, and when I came back to LA to come, I cared a little more and I tried to put myself together. And my doctor, I went to see him for the last time, he did not recognize me. You look like a different human because I literally, my hair just stuck out on end and I didn't even, it hurt me to comb. Even this side of my hair to this day hurts. It hurts, my teeth shifted. I mean, I'm just tell you, my teeth shifted. I already had problems in my family but it affected everything inside my mouth. So I had to go through reconstruction on my mouth. I mean, there's things that you go through, and to this day, my hand at any point in time, it can get. I say it's my barometer now. The one good thing, because I had to bless it and say, I know it's in the healing state, and it does pain me, but I'm blessing it because it does serve as a barometer for me that when I get stressed, I immediately know. There's no, it's no longer silent for me. This hand would get so hard that it lets me know immediately if I need to sit down and be still or whatever it is, I'm under too much stress, I know immediately. So I thank the universe. If I need that barometer to keep on the right path, then I will deal with this barometer. But this barometer reminds me daily, all day long. I just learned to tolerate, and I learned toleration, to be tolerant and to be thankful and to be patient because when you have a stroke, they just don't say take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. This is for a while that you got to go through. It can be decades that you might be going through healing, but you just become appreciative of the fact that you got a chance to heal. Because there's so many people that I work with, from John Singleton, I photographed Luke Perry, Sinbad, who's got to had a stroke, and I pray for him every day. I haven't heard where he is right now, but a stroke ain't no joke.
Mhm.
It's
No.
serious business. And that's why I took my time because I was very educated and I thought I knew things and I didn't know about this a stroke. I didn't know. I was not educated to know really what the signs were. And they can be prevented. And you can recover from them. It takes work. It ain't for those weak. Is you gotta want to live and you
Yeah.
gotta want to change and it's gotta be a renewing of the mind and the soul and the spirit because to move forward when your body is constantly breathing the pain. I mean, as I talk to you, my hand hurts because I'm putting on energy and I feel this energy going all through this arm and it's like needles and pins and it's an odd feeling. I've learned to live with it, but it lets me know all the time that I'm still here and you got to stay in line and do the things to stay alive. But I'm so glad to be alive. I would never be having this conversation with you, all the wonderful people we've been able to meet and connect with. And there's a reason for this. I don't believe anything. There are no accidents in the universe. I believe that coincidence is merely God remaining silent and that he has a work for us to do. And I had this that came to me even when I was in the hospital, when I was breathing in pain and darkness, that he said that there something good is coming out of this for the masses and that you just got to believe and you got to walk forward. And I don't know, I thank God for the grace of his grace that he allowed me to keep moving forward. Because
There you go.
even as a photographer, when I came back, because I had just started photography as a Hollywood photographer. I had been a real estate photographer prior. And I was just getting into Hollywood when I had the stroke. And so there were so many people. First of all, as a woman, I was a black woman, and there are hardly any black women. I was a short black woman, which makes it hard because it's not a short people's game, because everybody can shoot over you. And and then I was a seasoned woman. I wasn't like one of the young people. And then I went, and then now I had a stroke, and I can't. So people were telling me you'll never make it. You and I had so many people tell me. That's why I didn't tell many people because so many people told me that, and it was photography is what saved me. And I believe that whatever stroke survivors, you gotta have something to look forward to, something that gives you a light that you enjoy getting up every day. And photography was the thing that made me say I had a use. It gave me a purpose and I could help other people. And I didn't worry about money. And once I threw out the factor about money, I was all right because
There you
I
go.
was getting
So now you touched on a great point right there. You have to find a purpose, you have to find a light. So, those that are struggling to find their purpose or to find their light, how do you suggest they do that? They find their quote unquote purpose or they find their light. How do you suggest they go about that?
I think each and every one of us come here with purpose, but we're generally so busy looking on the outside that we never go inside. And it's an inside job. And so one of the things the stroke taught me was to go inside. And that is how I found myself. It was nothing on the outside. It
Yeah.
was inside thing. I went inside and I meditated to heal my body. I would put in YouTube meditation for healing this whatever specific problem I was dealing with. I put in there, and it's funny. And that's why I love the internet. Something came up, and I would be still and listen, and it would come. I could feel the ease and the pain going out. So I practice. If you can hum, you can heal. And I write about that in my book. I write about the things that I use, the natural healing methods that I went back to, eating right, which is important, exercise, but it's an inside job. Once I think it's a analogy about all of life itself. It starts within, and then even a flower, everything, the seed starts within and then blossoms out. But we
Mhm.
want to look for everything on the outside, a ready-made thing, and it's not. It's got to be cultivated. And so I learned from the stroke again. It taught me, it changed my whole perspective of what I really was sent here for. Because I thought it was about this money thing, you know.
Yeah.
I really was. I was on the money hunt like everybody else,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, it wasn't. And you know what? More has come to me when I had left.
Love it. There you go.
And you know what? The universe can open up doors you never knew existed. But if
Mhm.
you don't believe that there are doors out there to be open, then they will never open.
Nope.
It starts with the renewing of our minds.
Yep.
And that's what I want to tell people. We can change anything if we change our thinking, our
It's all about your mindset, right? All about your mindset.
everything. I know that made the difference. Let me tell you, I never forget the doctors after when they heard I had come in, because I was rushed into emergency vehicle because the doctor called, 911 for me. And I was rushed in and they had because of the doctor, the report was out. He gave a report on me ahead of time. So they knew what was coming in. When I got to the hospital, they put me in a room and all these specialists just surrounded me like I was a monkey in a cage. And they were all talking about you survived an airplane flight, a 5-hour flight. You had the stroke as soon as you got on the plane. We can't believe you survived. And considering I survived very well, pretty much. I wasn't all broken up, but
Yeah.
good, under the circumstances. But I was in pain. But and I told them, and they all asked me, "What did you do? What did you do?" And I said, "I prayed." And they asked me, "No, what did you really do?" And I told them, "You're not ready." I prayed. And I,
Yeah.
I just simple, and I always tell people this, and I'm not trying to be a preacher sermon, but I just have to, my experience, what happened for me. If you take the P off of the word pray, is Ray. And I always felt like I connected to the universal source to guide me and direct me through this way. And if there's ever a time you need it, is when you're facing death. And I
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those times I could not do this alone, and there was something that was going to have to move me because it was bigger than me.
Yep.
And that's what moved me forward and gave me hope and gave me something to look forward to, that I could do my camera. I could help other people. I worked for the Good Samaritan Hospital as a advocate for them. Then the universe led me to meet uh, a Jean, and just everything, doors just start opening for me. And now I've got to meet you, Mark, and be with Determined TV, and it's a blessing. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this journey because we're changing the planet for the greater good of everybody, and that's so important. What are all the material things here? We all stroked out.
Hey, isn't that the truth? Hey, so I want to circle back around just a little bit. Now, what inspired you to write your book?
My journey, it to me, it was kind of uh, healing for me too, to kind of
Yeah.
write things down. That time it was kind of like journalistic, and to remember these things, because it was, I mean, it was like you never prepare again for this. You don't think I've been healthy all my life. I never had one sick day or a cold here or there. I never,
Mhm.
I never imagined that this could happen to me.
Mhm.
I hadn't been sick before I had the stroke.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? Now looking back, I see there were some signs, but they were, in my mind, minuscule.
Mhm.
But so I don't know. It's kind of cathartic for me writing the book, and just to have, because there's so many. We're taught all the time. I mean, told by the medical profession to take this, take a pill and it'll heal everything. And I didn't like what they were giving me. I didn't
Mhm.
like it. First of all, they didn't even know what to give me to get my sight back. So I lost a lot of faith in them because they were like, "Oh well, you're." When I got to LA, they were horrible to me. They were like, oh, well, you don't have any insurance. We're not really helping you. You know, you want to help, you got to get on your own. So that's what I did. And I'm so glad I did because I found a natural healer who gave me just something that had no side effects. And I can see again. You
There
know,
you go.
I can see again. And I mean, that's one of your greatest gifts to have sight. And being a photographer, it was very precious to me, you know. And I wanted other people to know there are other ways to heal, like meditation and just exercise. And there are a lot of things that you have to change. But first of all, you have to change your mindset for any of those things to operate, you know.
Yeah. So if someone was to ask you, "Hey Donna, what is your book about?" What would you say?
My book is about a, a journey, a little journey of my life because I think you have to understand the context of what people move through that affects their life. My son was murdered. First of
Oh
all,
no.
knocked unconscious 5 times. So I think that had a little effect on my head.
Hmm.
Then I went through my son being murdered. And first he disappears for 5 days. I find out he was murdered. Okay, after 5 days.
My condolences.
Okay, murdered by LAPD. My son was a
Wow.
straight A student. My son never gave me a day's trouble. He fit none of the stereotypes, and it's still a mystery as to why my son was killed. We know that it was unlawful killing, and that is another story. But imagine that as a parent, your child is just snatched away, missing for 5 days. Found out he's been killed with less than a mile from your home.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a lot to deal with as a mother. And I had to go through the whole thing of trying to find out what happened to my son. They had withheld all the information from me. In fact, I've done a documentary on it that should be out this summer. Because
Okay.
I needed for my healing to release,
Yeah.
even if I never get any justice from the powers that be, I needed this for other people to know. Okay, so that was another thing. And then just living life and doing too many things at one time and not eating right and all those conglomeration, flying on the airplane every week, not knowing I had high blood pressure was a recipe for a stroke.
Yeah.
It was a recipe. And I just felt like I needed to write some of these things down for other people to know about it because it's affecting so much of our society. What is it, the third largest killer? And like the number one disability for people.
Mm.
Stroke is affecting so many lives. And people think that it's only older people get it, but the younger people are having strokes left and right.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Thing about strokes, they taught me they're non-discriminatory. They love any sex, they age, all those sexism.
No,
No
no
color.
color. Yep. No
Yeah,
gender. Yep.
that's the good thing because now it's brought all of us from the young to the old. It's been a point of bringing us all together, making us meld together for a common unity. And I appreciate. We never know why things are given to us, but they're always for a greater good. There's
Oh
always
yeah.
whatever comes to us, say yes to it, even what we deem as negative or positive is coming to teach us. It's a lesson or a blessing, or both,
Yeah.
or both.
I agree. I agree. Now it's just a matter of whether you accept a lesson.
Yes.
Some people tend to look at it as a curse, so to speak. Why does this always happen to me? Why am I always put in these situations? So now, for those that do think that way, what do you have any thoughts on that?
And all I can say is say yes to life to whatever shows up. What can you do? But say what you resist persists. So say yes to it and it will crumble. Say yes,
There
I'm willing to deal with this challenge. If it was sent to me, it was for my greater good because you know what? It's a thought process. You see the glass half empty or half full. So it depends on how you look at it. So you get what you see. And if you see nothing but darkness, that's what you're gonna walk in. I chose to look for the light. I always try, I'm a photographer, I live by light. Photography operates on light. I let the light be my guide, and I always pray for the highest and brightest light to guide and direct me. I know it's not about me. It's not ever about us.
Mm-hmm.
We are directed and guided vessels of light, but we have to realize that we are that. And sometimes these challenges come to teach us, to make us stronger, to move us forward. It's an evolutionary leap. And I believe that with a lot of stroke survivors who I've talked to, because I thought, I'm gonna be honest, when I was first feeling this, I thought there's another excerpt I'm gonna send you my book, Mark, because I like for you to read it. I'm gonna get to send it
For
to you.
sure.
But
For sure.
in the book, there was another point where I thought, for a minute I was going crazy because I was thinking like, oh, this is good, and I'm in pain and horrendous. But I just totally changed. I wouldn't let those thoughts. I would not let any negative thoughts. I never forget coming back when I got back to LA. I was so happy, and the song kept playing. When You've Been Blessed, Passing On by Patti LaBelle. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to that record all day long for 24 hours just to get that in my head. When you've been blessed, because I felt like when the doctors told me I was a miracle, then that just changed my whole idea about what I was going through. I was like, I was a miracle to survive this on an airplane up in the air with no air, and the air fluctuation of the air should have killed
Yep.
me, with no oxygen. And I came out of that with flying colors under the circumstances, but it did affect my central nervous system even to this day. But if I had thought about all the negative, and if I sat and I talk to my body and I tell them, you're healing. This right arm is feeling better. I say, there's circulation happening. I spend that and do that every day because I believe your body responds to your believing word.
Yep.
If you're telling it all kind of negative things, okay, bad input in, bad input out, input out. So you talk to your body and you tell it you're healing. You know what I'm saying? We got to work with it. You got to work with what you're given. And
Oh,
I always have believed in that you start with what you have. I never forget asking God, well, I only have one hand. Should I continue photographing? And he said, I gave you one. So start with what you have. And that's what I tell people. We're always looking for something. Start where you are, what you've been given, and then move forward. If you can't utilize what you already be given, why should the universe give you more?
there you go. I love it. I love it.
So I mean, what were some of the things I'd like that you tell me what moved you forward? Because I always like to hear other people. What was it? I know it's what made you move forward. What was the thing that lit your fire?
Essentially, I had mine when I was 15, and I was just young, and I had dreams and aspirations to play, as most kids that are athletic, to play professional sports. And when I had my stroke when I was 15, obviously that didn't come to fruition. But, I was in a coma for a month and a half. And when I woke up from my coma, I couldn't talk because I had right lung collapse. So I had my tracheotomy, in. And my mindset at that time was focused more on um, everyone else, to be honest.
Hmm.
I had younger siblings. I was the oldest of my younger siblings. My parents, I didn't want my situation to be a burden on them, so I wanted to essentially grab the bull by the horns and get better, obviously, for myself, but, you know, um, for them as well, just because, obviously I'm the child, my parents are the parents, and I didn't want them to have that burden like, oh, look what I put my child through. So, I went through my rehab, started out with the parallel bars, went to a walker, went to a wide base 4-prong cane, went to a regular cane. This all happened my freshman year in high school. So I went back my sophomore year in high school wearing a helmet because there was no bone in there. Um, Backtrack one more time. This all happened because I had brain surgery to remove an AVM, which is a tangle of blood vessels that was causing me to have seizures. So I went back to school my sophomore year and wearing a helmet and a small base 4-prong cane. Now, everything was not all hunky dory. It was obviously it was obviously the largest obstacles, that I had to overcome, in my young life and even, now, as slapped in the face, punched in the gut, type of moment. And so, I essentially had to graduate high school in 3 years because my whole freshman year was thrown in the wind. And I did that. I was a senior taking 7 classes and I graduated on time. And I still have seizures just because there was so much scar tissue in there because they had to operate 5 times because they went in, they aborted the surgery because my brain swelled, which is when I had my stroke. Then they thought they got the AVM, but they didn't get the whole AVM, so they had to go back in. And then I have a shunt in here because there was water on the brain. The shunt got infected, so they had to replace the shunt. So I have severe scar tissue. That's why I still have seizures. But yeah, it's been quite the journey. And now I have my MBA, in business, and I'm married, and I have 4 kids. So it's during that time frame, I wouldn't have been able to um, get through it if I didn't have the support of my family.
What a blessing.
Yeah, because if I didn't, like, I learned that if I had to go to the bathroom, like, I needed to freaking go to the bathroom because there was so many times that I essentially, like, soiled my pants. And my
Yeah.
sister was there, my awesome sister was there to help clean me up, and she's 2 years younger than me. And yeah, and it's like you already alluded to earlier, you already stated, stroke is not for the weak. And it's all about, the choices that you make. You either decide that you are going to set a goal and decide if you're going to go and obtain that goal, or if you're going to, as harsh as it sounds, if you're going to sit there and wallow in self-pity and wonder forever, why did this happen to me? Now, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have those moments where you're able to think, why am I going through this? We're human. Everyone's allowed to, have those moments, but we just have to keep it at that as a moment, you know. And so yeah, that's in a nutshell. There's obviously a lot more to that. I don't want to take up, all your time, but in a nutshell, that's basically my journey. So
No, you wear well, and you know what? I have the utmost respect for you because I mean, I was in the seasoned part of my life, and you're here in the young, just development of your life. And
yeah.
do you happen to know Cal Mingenkoff, who has the brain bar? he wrote a book. And I met him, and we have to introduce you to. I want you to meet him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He works with stroke survivors and also people with brain traumatic brain injuries, and
Hmm.
a session called the Brain Bar. Um,
Okay.
and he was like you. He was like I think 10 when he was playing baseball, I believe, and he stroked out and he had to learn how to talk again and go through the whole thing. And one thing I always love him about him is that whenever we come, the one thing he always said, there's no, because sometimes we all get those times we forget things. You'll be right in the middle of what you
What are we doing right now?
think. But the good thing is that we all can laugh and just be patient and
Yeah.
wait on you. And sometimes you may not never get it because sometimes it'll just leave me. I just
Oh
like
yeah.
know it's there and it's
Yeah.
gone. And I learned to one not be judgmental of anybody and not to be judgmental of myself. That I'm doing better than what I used to be doing. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I used to couldn't open his hand at all. And I started saying, thank you for letting me open it just a little bit. And when it opened a little bit more, I said, God, thank you. And when he let me put it together, I said, thank you for that. So becoming grateful and appreciative helps you to heal. It heals you. And that's another thing I would tell people. You got to become thankful and just appreciate everything. I just appreciate everything now.
Yeah, yeah. You have to.
Because nothing's promised us. you know?
We were given. We were given a second chance at life, and then
Exactly.
how. What are you gonna do with that second chance? Are you going to, you know, um, like my sister has said this. What do you want people to say at your eulogy?
Mhm.
What are people going to be able to say about you?
You know,
So
that's interesting that you said that because I kind of didn't want my chapter to end like that. Just I had a stroke and that was it.
yeah, yeah. I had a stroke, and or Mark had a stroke, and then he wasn't really able to do much after that. That's not what I want people to say at my eulogy. I want someone to get up there and say, Mark had a stroke, and then he was able to get up there and make an impact, and change, something along those lines. So here we are, sitting here having this discussion, and see where the wind takes us. So with that being said, Donna, do you have any concluding thoughts for our community?
One is that I think one that we should utilize our highest wireless connection, and that to me is prayer meditation. And to begin every day with thanks and thank God for guiding us through our roadmap to restoration and put our trust in the heavenly forces that allows the sun, the moon, the stars to operate in divine order every day. They're never late. They're always on time. There's something else operating in our life. Trust in it, and it will move you forward, even through your trials and your tribulations. Things you never know that may come to serve you will come upon you, but utilize them for your greater good.
There you go. Now, my concluding thoughts are, every stroke journey is different. There are no two that are the same, as Donna was on here sharing hers, and then she flipped the script and had me share mine. You can tell that obviously ours are different. Um, but that doesn't mean that you or we or any of us that have sustained a stroke, that doesn't mean that we didn't feel or have the same feelings, in our darkest times, which was feeling of loneliness, or feeling heartbroken, whatever those sad feelings were, whatever those types of feelings were, because those are all relatable types of feelings. And, it's just a matter of being able to pick yourself back up and being able to, you know, choices determine your future is where it comes into play, and we have a huge community where if you are there struggling, you can reach out to someone that has been there, is there, and say, hey, Donna, hey, Mark, hey, George, hey, Paul, hey, Jerry, this is where I'm at. How do I get out of this mental state that I'm in? It's okay to reach out. You're not alone in this journey. It's okay to reach out to someone if you need to. You're not alone in this journey. With that being said, Donna, you said that you're going to go ahead and conclude the show. So let's do it.
All right. And on that note, we're going to say, Dear Heavenly Mother, Father God, Universal Mind, Divine Idea, Lord God Almighty, we move forward in this night with an attitude of gratitude and thankfulness for the convening of these kindred spirits who have convened for the transformation and healing of stroke survivors, stroke warriors, stroke triumphant. We thank you for allowing your light to shine the highest and the brightest on us by guiding and directing our way. We pray that we remain open, receptive vehicles for your will to be done through our life. We remain open to receive your light as it moves through us, in us, and as us. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you for now and forevermore. We say amen.
Amen. Donna, I appreciate you so much.
So much.